Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. Today's episode is going to be a quick tip tactica, and I want to have a look at how Scions have been impacted by the new Voice of Command update. For those of you who are not in the loop, Voice of Command, the army faction ability of the Imperial Guard, was recently updated in the balanced data slate. Now, fundamentally, it works the same way it always has done. You have an officer who can do orders, he picks a unit, and he applies a buff to that squad, which lasts from one command phase to the next command phase. But how it was updated is now you can do orders not just in your command phase, but also when you arrive on the battlefield or you disembark from a transport. This means that previously, if you had an officer who was in Strategic Reserve or Deep Strike Reserve or in a transport, then they would miss out on the opportunity to do orders. But now, that is not the case. Any officers who can do orders in the command phase must do them there. For example, if you have a 20-man Blob of Death Corps Krieg with a Marshal attached and they're just running around, they're deployed on the board from the get-go, he still has to do his orders for his blob in the command phase. But if you took the same blob and put it into Strategic Reserve, the turn that it came in, so obviously your reinforcements arrive at the end of your movement phase, then the turn that he comes in, he would be able to do the order, not in the command phase, because he would have been off the table, but actually at the end of your movement phase when he's come in from reserve. This is really impactful, and we're only just starting to unpick all of the different ways that this can be used and exploited on the tabletop, but needless to say that it's quite a big buff to the Guard, who have always relied upon orders to get the job done. And one unit which has really benefited from the new Voice of Command is the Militarum Tempestus Scions. Scions are the elite soldiers of the Imperial Guard, and one of their abilities, which makes them pretty unique in terms of Guard units, is they can deep strike. Most Guard units start on the board and they grind their way across in an attritional style. And individually, the units aren't that powerful, but together they bring cumulatively lots of firepower. Guard normally is a very quantity, has a quality of its own, but Stormtroopers are the mirror that is held up to this. Stormtroopers are the opposite of this, and they are very, very powerful, but very, very fragile. They pack a lot of special weapons, and they've got a good ballistic skill, but they are just as fragile as your normal Guard. Essentially, Scions are the scalpel to the Emperor's hammer. Now, these bozos sound pretty badass, but one of the big problems they've had in 10th edition is, well, if you want to use their unique thing of deep striking down, teleporting in behind enemy lines, then you won't get to use orders on them. And even though they're very good, it kind of felt like Scions weren't really fulfilling their potential. I mean, if you can have a 20-man unit of Cadians, which can have 2 melter guns, 2 plasma guns, they're going to hit on 3s because they started on the board, so they got orders in the command phase. What's the point in taking a 10-man unit of Scions, which is going to cost basically the same amount, but because it can't get orders, even though they've got a basic ballistic skill, which is better than Guardsmen, it's basically the same amount of special weapons hitting at the same rate, right? Well, all of that has changed because now you can have your Scion squad, big 10-man brick of these special forces, and you can attach to them a Scion command squad, which not only takes your 10-man squad up to a 15-man brick, and that is a lot of Scions in one place, but now when this unit drops down, they can get orders. The attached Scion commander can issue an order to his unit, because now, thanks to the new Voice of Command rules, do the order when he has arrived from Deep Strike, when he comes in and is deployed on board. And by the Emperor, let me tell you something. These Scions are really powerful now. The effect that they have on the battlefield when they come down is palpable. They come in with the first wave. They smash the entire area and they kill everything that's got more than 2 legs. And let me be clear, this isn't some bold statement that's just made by looking at the theory, looking at the numbers, math hammering this out. No, this is based on hard-won battlefield experience. I took a very heavy Scion army to a tournament recently, literally the weekend after the balanced data slate dropped, and I used this strategy again and again and again. I took this big 10-man brick of Scions, I added a Scion command squad to it, and I dropped it down turn after turn after turn over the course of 5 very competitive games, and every single time it slapped the shit out of my opponent. However, I also want to say that there are a few pitfalls with this strategy, and so I'm going to take you through it step by step now, what I found worked and what I found didn't work. The general concept of taking 15 Scions and adding a command squad to it, it's pretty simple, right? We can all get behind that. You get 15 Scions, they're going to be hitting on 3s, and they're going to be packing a lot of special weapons. But you really want to focus on that second part there, that latter point, the packing as many special weapons as you can. Normally, when you take command squads, your thinking is, well, if it's like a platoon command squad or a Canaan command squad, like, well, I want the banner in there, I want the medipack in there, I want the Master Vox in there. And by the time you're done, you'll have maybe like one dude with a special weapon, right? That is not what you want to do with these Scions. You need to be packing as many special weapons in there as possible. I ran mine as a Scion command squad, and I had a plasma pistol on the officer. I didn't go for the Tempesta command rod. I thought, no, I just want as many plasma shots as I could get. So I went for a plasma pistol on the Tempesta commander. He has a little Tempesta dagger as well. And then I actually took a Master Vox in one of my units, and then I had one guy who's got a medipack and a flag. I know there's a little controversy around can you have one man with a medipack and a flag, but I have actually done a video separate to this going through in detail how it is possible. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that now. But so I had 2 guys who didn't have special weapons, and then I had an officer with a plasma pistol, and then I had a plasma gun and a melter gun, my command squads. And benefit of hindsight now, I probably wouldn't have bothered with the Master Vox at all. I had the idea that I could drop down and maybe like do some long range orders if I need to, but as it turned out, no. Also, I did make a little mistake in the tournament where I put Grand Strategist on my Scion Commander thinking he could drop down and do 2 orders, but he can't. Grand Strategist doesn't give you an extra order. It allows you to do a bonus order in the command phase, so if you need Deep Strike, that's not a thing as well. So a few pitfalls there. If you don't need the Master Vox for sure, and you don't need, you can't use Grand Strategist to try and have one Scion Command Squad boost 2 Scion Squads. Out of all of the non-gun upgrades, after using them on Scions, I found that the only one that you might want to take is the flag, because it gives you the extra OC. The Feel No Pain basically did nothing. It came up once or twice, but a 6 Feel No Pain on Toughness 3 models really isn't a big deal. So even if we do have the debate over should you have flag and medipack on one guy, really, if you're really worried about it, just take the flag. But even the flag, I would say, was okay, but not necessary. Tended to find that 15 Scions had more OC than a lot of enemy units. There was like one game where there's like a Norn emissary that had 15 OC for being on a specific objective. That was a little tricky. But for the rest of it, I found that I didn't need the flag or the medipack. And overall, honestly, I probably would have been better off just taking 4 special weapons in that unit. And the simple reason that you want to take more special weapons is you want to do more damage, because this isn't like your typical guard infantry unit whose job is to take objectives and score points first and do damage second. No, these guys are going to slap. These guys are going to come in and smash. Their primary goal is to do as much damage before they go down. And interestingly, if they do enough damage, often they can clear an entire section of the board and then they end up surviving. One thing that I found really interesting about running multiple Scion units, and we are going a little tangent here, but not for too long, is if I deployed like 25 Scions into an area, sometimes 30 if I took 2 Gigablobs and put them in one place, I'd clear everything out of the area, and suddenly my Scions wouldn't be doing suicide drops, dropping in then dying or whatever. No, they'd drop in, they'd clear, and then they would live, because now they've got that part of the board under control. A lot of armies these days are quite, interestingly, they're quite fragile. Even though they've got a lot of like tanks and stuff, when they're dead, they're dead. And they're also, they don't have a huge amount of units in their army. So if you drop down and clear out, let's say there's like 2 tanks holding a flank, or you come down and there's like an enemy unit of Terminators that's walking to the board, you clear that out. Often that's like a 400-point investment for your opponent, and they don't have much more that's going to be coming over into that area of the board, especially if you're looking at sort of turn 3, you're doing this. But anyway, point is, you want to take many special weapons because the whole idea is you're going to kill stuff. Leave the objective taking to your other infantry, Scions. They go in there and they smash necks and they cash checks. But in order to do this, you're going to need some good damage output. And this kind of leads us back to what we were talking about before, which is special weapons. I've talked a lot about, you want to cram as many special weapons into these units. Command squad needs like 4, and the plasma on the officer, and then you need to go max on your Scions as well. But it's all well and good saying special weapons. The next question is, which ones? Frankly, it's plasma and melter. You can talk about volley guns, you can talk about going double grenade launcher, but really it's plasma and melter. I ran a mixture of double plasma, double melter Scion units. We're talking about the 10-man Scions here for now. And I also ran some with double plasma, double volley gun. And I consistently found that I just wish that I'd not bothered with any of the volley gun. And I think this is a product of 10th edition, because everything that you face is going to be hard as nails. It's either going to be a vehicle, at which point the volley gun is wounding it on 6s, or it's going to be some sort of dead hard infantry which has got -1 to wound, or it's toughness 5 natively, at which point you're wounding on 5s, and at most cases I found I was wounding on 6s. So don't bother with the volley guns, frankly. You'll have enough firepower, enough volume coming out of the las guns, the hotshot las guns, if you really want to have a little bit of stacker. So I would say every Scion squad that you're thinking of doing this tactic with wants to have double plasma gun, double melter gun, a plasma pistol on the sergeant, and a power fist on the sergeant. And then when you add your 5-man squad onto it, you want to have the officer of the plasma pistol, and then you want another Scion in that squad with a plasma gun, then a melter gun, then a grenade launcher. Then you have that 4th guy left over who you either give the flag or you go for one more special weapon. At that point, you're kind of out of options. You're down to like volley gun or flamer. And then that's when I would consider the volley gun. But that's how low down on the priority is. And I would probably, honestly, I'd probably take the flag dude. Because the flag dude is going to have, I think the flag dude comes with a rifle and the flag. And so he's still going to have a lot of shots. As you'll see in a moment when we move on to what orders we should do when we're dropping down. He's still going to have like 3 shots, which is pretty much as many as the volley gun is going to have. So I think almost universally the volley gun is just not worth it. When we put all of this together, what we end up with is a 15-man Scion unit with 2 plasma pistols, 3 plasma guns, 3 melter guns, a grenade launcher, and then 6 blokes with rifles. That on its own is a lot of firepower. Bear in mind, you're going to be deep striking in to rapid fire range, and so you're actually going to have about 8 plasma shots, 3 melter shots, a crack grenade shot, and then a dozen hotshot rifle bolts going out there as well. But this brings us on to orders. Now, when I started putting this blob together on paper, I had a preconceived notion, and I know many people are going to have a preconceived notion, that I was going to use the take aim order. And that's because whenever you're using regular guard units, you want to go from hitting on 4s to hitting on 3s, so you always go for take aim pretty much over first, second fire, or other orders. But I actually found with Scions that you don't really need take aim, because yes, if you give them take aim hitting on 2s, and yes, if you combine this with their innate Stormtrooper ability, that's some reroll 1s, you will be hitting better than a Custodes. But you actually want to go for first rank fire, second rank fire in the majority, not all, but the majority of circumstances. And this is because 40k is a game of standing on circles. It's about taking primary objectives. And so more often than not, you're not going to be rerolling ones, you're going to be getting full rerolls to hit. And that's because if you read the second part of the Stormtrooper ability, you get full rerolls if an enemy unit, 4 rerolls to hit to be clear, not to wound, 4 rerolls to hit, if an enemy unit is on an objective. And by the time that you bring your reserves in, which tends to be turn 2 or turn 3, the enemy units are going to be on those objectives. Because they're not on the objectives, then that's good for you anyway, because it means they're not taking primary, right? The enemy is stuck in a bit of a catch-22 because they move on to the objectives and your Scion firepower goes through the roof. They don't move on to the objectives and you end up getting primary. Now, full rerolls is very tasty, especially when it combines with 2 other factors, 2 other ingredients we are going to throw into the mixing pot right now. First one is first rank fire, second rank fire. Now, this is the order that in previous editions was the go-to, especially for infantry guard, but now has fallen a little bit by the wayside for take aim. But first rank fire gives your rapid fire weapons an extra shot. This is not just lasguns. In old editions, it was just lasguns that were affected, but it affects all your rapid fire weapons now. And yes, that does include plasma guns. So suddenly, it now becomes clear why I was saying just every plasma gun you can get your hands on. Frankly, if I could take all plasma guns, if we could dial this back to like 8th edition guard codex, just for this one unit, just for this one weapon selection, where I could be like, right, I'm going to take a 10-man Scion squad, put 4 plasma guns in there, and then take a 5-man Scion command squad and put 4 plasma guns in there. I would drop down with 8 plasma guns, no questions asked. Because if you could take that many plasma, the amount of plasma shots you would get with new first rank fire would be insane. Sadly, we can't do that. So the most plasma guns you can get into this Giga Blob is 3. But when you give those first rank fire, second rank fire, and they're within rapid fire range, you are going to get 9 plasma gun shots from 3 models. And then you have the plasma pistols in there as well. So you're going to get 11 plasma gun shots from 5 models. But wait, there's more. Because by adding the Scion command squad to the regular Scion unit, you actually get another ability, which is sustained hits. Now we've got 11 shots, hitting on 3s, 4 rerolls, and every 6 that we get to hit generates another hit. Now, I'm not sure on the actual math hammer behind this. Cleverer people than I will be able to point out what the average and what statistically you should get from this combination. But I can tell you from my battlefield experience that I rarely got less than 15 shots. 15 hits, to be clear. I would roll my 11 shots. Most of them would hit. Some of them would be 6s. I'd re-roll them. I'd get another 6 or 2. And so from 11 shots, I tend to get 15 hits. And that's consistently. Sometimes I spiked and got like 16 or 17 hits. Once, I think I got 14. But I never got lower than that. And this was dropping down over turn 2, turn 3 across 5 games. So we're talking at least 10 examples of this just consistently happening. And it was like clockwork. And that is a wild amount of hits coming out of 5 models. So we've gone from 3 plasma guns and 2 plasma pistols. We've gone from what on paper looks like sort of 5 plasma shots. And just by adding these 2 units together and just taking advantage of our inbuilt abilities, and by using one order, we've got 5 models that are putting out 15 plasma hits. And once you've got the hits across, unless you're shooting, but even if you're shooting a vehicle, you've still got to wound. And sometimes that's very easy. So if you're shooting into a unit of infantry, then wounding on 3s, you tend to get most of those wounds through. But even if you're shooting something difficult that your plasma is not ideally suited for going against, like vehicles, you'll find that if you get 15 hits, you're going to get 5 wounds, and they're AP -3 because you're overcharging pretty much all the time. And so your opponent's going to have like a 5-up save at best. And so you could drop down and you can basically halve most vehicles. And this is before we've gone with the melter guns, the actual anti-tank. And don't forget, those melter guns are also going to have sustained hits as well. But I found, just going back to the plasma for a moment, I found that I would roll out my plasma and my opponents would go, "Whoa, that was a lot of damage from that unit." And I would have to go, "Oh no, sorry, I've not finished with the unit." And they were like, "What do you mean? That was like so many shots." I went, "Yeah, that was just 3 dudes and a couple of plasma pistols." And they would be stunned. Like, every opponent that received this couldn't believe how much firepower was just coming out of those 3 guys. And then the melter guns went in, and not always, but I would say every other time I had a melter gun that would get sustained hits. Sometimes I get like double sustained hits, and I get like 5 melter gun shots from like 3 melter guns. And then, yeah, the rifles and stuff tend to do a wound here and there. To be honest, the hotshot rifles didn't do a huge amount. There was an extra wound here and there done, but not enough damage to rely upon. This is kind of what I realized with the volley gun. Often I ended up rolling the volley gun at the same time as the rifles because I'd be shooting. It would be winning. But yeah, the plasma storm, as I nicknamed it, the plasma storm coming in was really deadly and was definitely the main factor in this whole combination. But the melter guns are not to be overlooked as well. They were key because sometimes you need more than damage 2. And being able to slam like 3 melter guns in there and just get those D6 damage through, get the AP4 through. The wounding on 5s against a lot of vehicles is a bit of a pisser, but against a lot of other units, it's fine. And just being able to get, often what I found, again, I'm not doing this on Math Hammer, I'm doing this on Experience Hammer. What I experienced was 3 melter guns with the rerolls, with the sustained hits. I consistently got 1 melter gun through. Now, I appreciate that was quite a long section and it might have been difficult to follow. So, in summary, take 15 Scions, 10-man squad, Scion Command Squad, mash them together, put as much plasma, melter gun in there as you can, drop down, target enemy unit on an objective, and unleash enough plasma to block out the sun. Now, that covers most of the big bits, but before we wrap up this video, there are 2 other small yet very mighty points I want to address. Firstly, is it always first rank fire, second rank fire, or are there other orders that you want to do? Well, I would say that you're going to be doing first rank fire 90% of the time, but sometimes you're going to not be able to deep strike into a super favorable position, and you might need to take a little bit of damage and survive a turn. That's when you could consider take cover. So I found that sometimes I would have to deep strike my units out of line of sight, so that next turn they could move out and do the damage. And my opponent wasn't likely to be able to get to me, but if he could, it would be with a bit of indirect fire. So I would drop down, take cover on my guys, take a few casualties, move out, then do my damage. The other option is if your opponent isn't on an objective and you want to hurt them, this is when I would say go to take aim, because you want to hit on the 2s, rerolling 1s then. If you're like me, if you hit roll in 3s, rerolling 1s, you're going to roll a lot of 2s, and it's going to be a bit of a pisser. So, yeah. On an objective, always first rank fire. Off an objective, often consider take aim. And then the last point is, should I be going pure Scions? Okay, Morden, you've convinced me these Scions are amazing. They sound like they're going to do a lot of damage. Should I be going pure Scions? And the answer to that is, if you want to, but I'm not saying pure Scions is the new meta. One of the big limitations I found with going pure Scions is I had a lot of stuff that could operate on the flanks and could drop down and do a lot of damage, but I really struggled with holding the middle objective. I had all the flanks for pretty much every corner and corralled my opponent into the middle, but if you're playing on a mission like the Ritual or Vital Ground, not Vital Ground, Purge the Foe, there's a lot of objectives, then you're going to want to be able to Barney in the middle. So going pure Scions isn't the point of this video. What I would say is if you take a Scion Command Squad and a big Scion brick, that's going to come into 190 points. Before the Voice of Command update, I would say that was a very expensive combo, and you'd probably be better off going for a Leave and Rust. Same price, roughly, and it's a bit more consistent. It's going to do damage consistently over a long period of time, doing every single turn. Now, I would say that you could happily swap out a Leave and Rust for a Scion Giga Blob. That's the damage that I had a Scion Giga Blob drop down, and whatever it went against, it killed. And we were even talking stuff that on paper it wasn't that good into. Dropped down to a Norn Emissary with a 2-up save, 4-up invuln, and a 5-up feel no pain. Yeah, it died. Dropped down against Orc Kill Rigs, something that is going to be on a lot of Orc players' agendas at the moment because they've gone down in points. Yeah, dropped down, killed that, no problem. Didn't even need to roll most of them. Shoot. 10 Orc Knobs led by a War Boss with a 5 invulnerable save because they've wired. So you're looking at a unit of 25 wounds, toughness 5, 5-up invuln, and -1 to wound. Yeah, they all died. Basically, these things will come down and do a really concentrated amount of damage. And that's something that I think every guard army can benefit from. So sure, if you want to go pure Scions, you can do, and it's going to feel really powerful. But just be aware that it's not going to suddenly fix a lot of the issues that Scions have, which is they struggle to hold ground and to get into those slugging matches. But as a hybrid guard player, someone who might be thinking to add more tools to their toolbox, more strings to their bow, and you're thinking, oh man, I'm just not getting the same value out of my Russes as I have been doing, or I want to mix things up a little bit, you can definitely use Scions. Another thing to mention is if you're someone who has Manticores, and obviously Manticores have recently gone up to 180 points, and you're looking to get yourself something that can strike behind enemy lines, indirect fire, Scions are a great source of pseudo indirect fires. They don't actually fire indirectly, but you can deep strike them into places where they can get those angles, and they can shoot what a lot of your other stuff wouldn't be able to shoot because it's direct fire, just trudging forward. So if you're someone who has Manticores and has Scions, and you don't want to end up buying a whole bunch of Basilisks, just switch those Manticores out straight for a Scion. I do want to make one thing abundantly clear. I'm not saying you have to go out there and buy a bunch of Scions. I'm saying that you can now include them, and they are not going to be taking away from your list. They're going to be actively bolstering it, adding both firepower and bodies to your guard army, which is two things that guard players absolutely love. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Are you Team Scions now, or are you going to be sticking with your traditional choices? Have you been trying out drop Scions? What were some effective combinations that you came up with? If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and, of course, subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.